The boy stood outside the glass building, staring at something he could never afford. Inside the showroom, a sleek black luxury car shined under bright lights. People in expensive suits walked past him without noticing. But the boy didn't move. Because in his empty pocket, there wasn't a single coin. And yet, in his mind, he already owned everything. His name was Samir, 17 years old, thin, quiet, and wearing the same faded shirt he had owned for almost 3 years. Most people in the city didn't notice boys like Samir. But Samir noticed everything. He noticed the tall buildings that touched the sky. He noticed the businessmen stepping out of shiny cars. And every time he saw them, a thought appeared in his mind. One day, I will be there too. Not beside them, but above them. Samir lived in a small, broken house near the railway tracks. The roof leaked when it rained. The walls were cracked. At night, the sound of trains shook the entire house. His mother worked long hours washing dishes in other people's homes. His father had once worked in construction, until an accident left him unable to work. Money was always short, sometimes dangerously short. There were days when dinner was just bread and tea. But Samir had something that most people around him didn't have. A dangerous dream. He believed his life would be different. Every morning, Samir walked through the richest part of the city on his way to school. He passed luxury hotels, expensive restaurants, massive office buildings made of glass. And every day, people laughed at him. Some looked at his worn shoes and shook their heads. Others whispered the same sentence. Poor boys should know their place. But Samir never argued. He never complained. Instead, he did something strange. He imagined. When he walked past those buildings, he imagined walking inside as the owner. When he saw expensive cars, he imagined driving them. When he passed corporate offices, he imagined his name on the door. People thought he was crazy. Maybe he was. Because Samir didn't just think small dreams. He thought ridiculously big. One afternoon after school, Samir stopped in front of a huge corporate tower. The building was so tall that it seemed to disappear into the clouds. On the front wall, golden letters displayed the company name. Malik Global Enterprises, one of the biggest companies in the country. Samir stood there quietly. A security guard noticed him. The guard walked over and looked him up and down. "Why are you standing here?" the guard asked suspiciously. Samir pointed at the building. "One day, I will work here." The guard burst out laughing. "Work here?" He looked at Samir's torn backpack. "Kid, people like you don't work here." Samir didn't react. Instead, he said something that made the guard laugh even harder. "I won't work here. I'll own a building bigger than this." The guard told that story to everyone for weeks. People laughed every time they heard it. A poor boy with empty pockets, dreaming about owning skyscrapers. But Samir didn't know people were laughing. Or maybe he simply didn't care. Because something inside him was growing stronger every day. Belief. One evening, Samir came home to find his mother sitting quietly in the kitchen. Her eyes were red. "Mom, what happened?" he asked. She tried to smile. "Nothing." But Samir knew that look. He checked the kitchen shelf. Almost empty. "How much money do we have left?" he asked softly. His mother hesitated. Then she whispered something that made his chest tighten. 20 rupees. That was all. 20 rupees. For the entire week. That night, Samir couldn't sleep. He stared at the cracked ceiling. His mind filled with thoughts, fear, pressure, responsibility. For the first time, his dream felt heavy. What good were big dreams, when reality was this harsh? For a moment, doubt appeared. Maybe the world was right. Maybe poor boys should know their place. But then something unexpected happened. Samir remembered something his father once told him. Years ago, before the accident, his father had taken him to a construction site. They were watching workers build a tall building. Samir had asked an innocent question. "Dad, how does a huge building start?" His father smiled. "From something very small. A single idea." Then he looked at Samir seriously. "Big buildings are built by people who think big first." That memory hit Samir like lightning. Suddenly, he understood something powerful. His pocket was empty, but his mind was not. And the mind was far more powerful. The next morning, Samir woke up with a strange energy. Instead of feeling defeated, he felt focused. He began doing something he had never done before. Learning, not just school lessons, real knowledge, business books, free online lectures at the public library, biographies of successful people. Every day after school, he studied for hours. He learned about money, investments, entrepreneurship, strategy. The more he learned, the bigger his thinking became. Months passed. Then one day, something surprising happened. While Samir was studying in the library, he overheard two businessmen talking. They were discussing a small online business idea. But they kept saying the same problem. We don't have someone young who understands social media. Samir's heart started racing, because that was something he had been learning. For 10 minutes, he sat quietly. Then he did something that terrified him. He stood up and walked toward them. "Excuse me," he said nervously. The two businessmen looked confused. "Yes." Samir took a deep breath. "I think I can help you." They looked at his clothes, his worn shoes, his nervous face, and they almost laughed, but something about his confidence made them pause. "What do you know about business?" one of them asked. Samir smiled slightly. "Maybe not much yet, but I think very big." For the next 30 minutes, Samir explained ideas, marketing strategies, online growth, creative promotions. The businessmen slowly stopped smiling. Then they started listening carefully. By the end of the conversation, one of them said something unexpected. "How old are you?" 17. The man exchanged glances with his partner. Then he said something that changed Samir's life. "Kid, we want to test your ideas." That small opportunity became Samir's first step. His ideas worked. Then they worked again. The small online business started growing faster than anyone expected. The businessmen were shocked, but Samir wasn't, because in his mind, he had already seen it happen. Years passed. Samir kept learning, working, thinking bigger. His small opportunities turned into bigger ones. His ideas turned into businesses. His businesses turned into companies. And slowly, the boy with empty pockets began building something powerful. An empire. One afternoon, many years later, a black luxury car stopped in front of a tall glass building. The driver stepped out and opened the door. A confident young businessman walked out. Expensive suit, calm smile, sharp eyes. It was Samir, the same boy who once stood outside buildings, dreaming. He looked up at the skyscraper in front of him. Golden letters shined on the wall. Samir Enterprises. Hundreds of employees worked inside. Millions of dollars moved through the company every day. But Samir didn't smile because of the success. He smiled because of the memory. Across the street stood another building. Malik Global Enterprises. The same building where the security guard once laughed at him. Samir walked across the street slowly. The guard at the entrance looked up. Older now, gray hair. Samir stopped in front of him. The guard didn't recognize him. "Can I help you?" he asked politely. Samir smiled. Years earlier, he had stood in this exact spot. With empty pockets, and a huge dream, he leaned closer and said softly, "Do you remember a boy who once said he would own a bigger building than this?" The guard's eyes widened. Slowly, recognition appeared. "You." Samir nodded. Then he looked up at his own skyscraper shining in the sunlight. I guess thinking big wasn't such a crazy idea after all. That night, Samir was interviewed on national television. The reporter asked the same question everyone always asks successful people. "What is the secret of your success?" Samir smiled. His answer was simple. "I started with nothing. No money, no connections, not even confidence. But I had one powerful thing. My thoughts." Then he leaned forward and said the one sentence that would inspire millions. Your pocket can be empty. But if your mind thinks big, one day your life will be too big for your pockets.